All right, guys, we have owned the 2020 Ecodiesel JL Wrangler Rubicon for over 8 months now. We've put over 12,000 kilometers. We've taken it through the Rocky Mountains to the top end of Vancouver Island, all over British Columbia. We've hit snow, mud, rock crawling, river crossings, and I think at this point, it's probably a good time to do a long-term review of it. So in today's video, we're gonna take a look at some of the options that I spec'd my JL with, because I did order it from the factory, whether or not I've enjoyed them and would recommend them, and some of the things I like and dislike about the JL. And then obviously we're gonna talk about the Ecodiesel platform itself, what has been my experience with it, some things that I've learned along the way, some of the true costs of owning it, and some of the common questions that I get about it, I will address in today's video towards the end. And then I'll give you my thoughts on whether or not I think the Ecodiesel is a good power plant for the Wrangler. And I have some ideas as far as Gladiators and other engine options go. So stay tuned to the end of the video for those final thoughts. In next week's video, I'm gonna do a long-term mod review. We've got tons of mods that have gone on here, from suspension to interior mods to tire carriers, wheels. We're gonna talk about how my experience has been with the parts that I've chosen, some mods that I've done to kind of fix some of the things that I don't like about the JL, and how they've held up on all of the adventures that we've gone on over the last year. So make sure you're subscribed. Don't miss that second part. All right, let's start out talking about the exterior. Now, some of the options that I did order from the factory are the steel bumper group, which is great because we were able to easily unbolt these end caps and give us that additional clearance for the front tires. I would say this is definitely one option to get if you're planning to off-road your Wrangler. As well, we can add a worn winch plate to the front, which allows me to bolt up a winch to the factory bumper, and I don't need to go and purchase an aftermarket bumper. I think this is a great feature to add if you're speccing out your JL, and it already has the cutout in it. We just added a fair lead and a winch hook, and this is awesome. It's probably the most essential mod, I think, to get out and do some off-roading, is to add a winch, and you can easily do that if you add the steel bumper group. Now the thing is, we have the steel, well, we had the steel bumper in the back, but we did take it off and we replaced it with the worn tire carrier so that we could hold the 37-inch tire and we didn't have to worry about damaging the tailgate. So I still think it is worth it. You can sell your front or rear bumper if you do replace them. There's a pretty good market for steel bumpers if you order them on your JL, so lots of people are going to buy them and they're easy to sell. So the other option that I added are the LED headlights and running lights, and as well the tail lights come with that package as well. The LED lights in the JL are awesome. They're very bright. The low beams are really good, especially compared to the JK before they offered an LED. I really like the look of the LED turn signals and running light, and the halo on these lights looks awesome. All right, we had to start it up, but we've got the halo on now. These are the running lights, so the halo on the headlight, and then we've got the LED marker lights on the fenders. Looks awesome. Great feature. Definitely would recommend the LED package. And now you can hear the diesel engine running. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Some of the things that I don't like, well, I don't know who designed the fenders and the gaps, but they definitely catch a lot of debris and material in here. Even we've added the weather stripping in here, which does help a lot, so the stuff can't go down as far in there. You know, everybody seems to have this problem with the JL, and it's really annoying when you go to wash it and you got to pick all the rocks out of it every time. We do only have the soft top on my JL. A lot of people ask me, oh, when are you going to put the hard top on? What do you think of the soft top? I really like it. I think the soft top on the JL, the redesign of it, is way better than what was on the JK. There's no zippers on it. Everything pops into place or Velcros, and it's super easy to take on and off. You can just grab the panels on the sides, you pull them off, and then the entire roof flips down with one hand, and you can take it down and put it back up in about a minute. And mine's just looking pretty dirty. I need to give it a good scrub, but it isn't actually faded. It gets pretty dark and black if we wash it properly, but it's always getting dirty, so I just don't bother. A couple other features that I really like. First, the keyless entry. The keyless entry system is awesome. Never having to fish your keys out of your pocket. You just tap the doors, they unlock all four. I think you can set it just to be drivers only. And then you can hop in your Jeep, and it's push button start. You can leave the keys in your pocket all the time, which is great. The other thing that I really like that I ordered is the remote start. So I do live in Canada. It does get a little bit cold in the winter, but it's nice to be able to remote start your Jeep. And if it's below 5 degrees, it will turn on the heated seats, the heated steering wheel, and adjust the climate control to heat things up. So yes, I did add the heated seats and the heated steering wheel. So let's pop inside, unlock, and we do have the cloth seats. And a lot of people ask, well, why didn't you get leather? Honestly, I really do enjoy the cloth seats. I find them cooler when it's really hot out. I find that the bolsters don't wear down from hopping in and out of your lifted Jeep all the time. I see a lot of leather seats here all crinkled, even with proper leather conditioning and trying to take care of them. They do get, they just look more worn out. So you can get heated seats with the cloth, so that's great. And we've got the heated steering wheel as well. And I think this is a great combo when it's really cold out. One thing I don't like about the seats, you can see my headrests are different. I don't know what it is about the JL design on the headrest, but it just, if you're taller, it hits you in the back of the head and actually pushes my head forward, and it's super uncomfortable to drive. So I turned my headrest around. I'm not sure I would recommend that to everybody. I'm not sure if that's safe or not, but this is the only vehicle that I own that really makes my neck sore because I can't seem to put the headrest up high enough to have my head right in the spot where it should be, rather than being hit by this top part that's all the way tilted forward. And I've seen a lot of other people that are taller complain about that. So I turned mine around. I don't know. Use at your own risk, I guess. Quickly, I won't get into too much of the interior, but one thing that really kind of bugs me is the power available in the front. So we do have the USB ports here. I have found them to be really low amperage output, so much so that it wouldn't charge my phone properly when it was connected with the wireless charger. So I'll talk about one of the mods that I did in the next video to remediate that, to make that better, and keep my phone topped up while running my GPS applications and Spotify and all that kind of stuff when we're out on the trail, and not ever deplete its battery. And there's no always on 12 volt port up front. So in the JK, I have an always on 12 volt receptacle, just like this one here, but this one is activated with the ignition. I wish there was another one up here that I could have on all the time to run stuff. Usually I'm using it to charge batteries for my drone and my GoPro, stuff like that. And I need more amperage. Definitely not adequate off these two USB ports. There is an always on port in the back. In the cargo area, there is an always on 12 volt port back here, which is good. I run my fridge off it. A little hard to see because it's a bit dark, but we've got one here right through the Tuffy security deck enclosure side. And that one is on all the time, but it's in the back. I'd like to have one up front where all my stuff is charging all the time. My last little minor complaint about the interior is this strap right here. This thing is really annoying. When you close the door, you can see how it bunches up and it sticks out, and that is just constantly hitting me in the side of the leg when I'm sitting here. Now the JL is nicer because it does seem to have a lot more leg room. There's a lot more leg room right here. There isn't as much stuff hitting you in the side of the leg when you're taller and you've got longer legs. But when you're wearing shorts, this thing is constantly bunched up and rubbing against the side of your leg all day long. It doesn't seem to get softer or hang down, and that's just something that's been kind of annoying to me. So if you guys have any solutions for that, I'm definitely open to suggestions. So what are my thoughts on the Ecodiesel engine? So far, so good. It hasn't caused me any problems other than that one small throttle control or throttle position sensor that I had when going up a very steep highway grade, and I was really pushing it with the accelerator to the floor. It gave me a check engine light, and it hasn't returned since. So I haven't really had any reliability issues with the Ecodiesel. So going through some of the questions that I get a lot about it. First of all, is it noisy? No, not really. If you're in the cab and you've got the windows up, you can't really hear the engine. You can tell that it is a diesel because of the low RPM shift points, and redline I think is like 3,600 RPM. So you do know you're driving a diesel. You can hear it a little bit. And there is some turbo lag. As you come off the line and start to accelerate, you'll all of a sudden feel the turbo start to build the boost and you get a surge of power, which is kind of fun, but you do have to realize that all of your power isn't there immediately. But when you're off-roading, you don't really notice any of the turbo lag for a couple reasons. The gear reduction of 4 low is 96-1, I believe, which just gives you an insane amount of torque with anything. And you're usually in a higher RPM because of that, so you're usually building boost and you don't really notice the turbo lag as much as you do, say, coming off the line on the highway. As for noise goes, the diesel engine is quite quiet. I haven't really found it to be a noisy vehicle. You do notice it from the outside, and you definitely notice it from a cold start when it's idling and warming up. Exhaust or emission system on it suppresses a lot of that diesel engine noise that you see on larger trucks, especially ones that have that deleted or they're older before that existed. So you don't get a lot of loud diesel noise coming from this. It's pretty quiet. And talking about the emission system, well, underneath we have all of this crazy stuff. Let's see if we can quickly go under here, but underneath here we have all of the exhaust system and all the exhaust emissions components. The diesel vehicles have a bunch of unique stuff to make them emissions compliant, especially in California. And one of those things is that it requires diesel exhaust fluid, or commonly known as DEF. So we have some DEF thanks to Blue Def. They sent over way more DEF than I need because I'm only going through about one of these every 5,000 kilometers. So we've got about 12,000 kilometers on it so far, and we've used 2 full jugs of DEF, and I just put another one in to top it up, which should last me a little bit longer. So that is definitely something you need to consider, is the additional cost of adding that fluid. They're about $20 Canadian per jug, and that's going to get, well, it's been getting me about 5,000 kilometers per. So something else to take into account for operating cost. And then the other cost is the oil change. Now, we did a video a few weeks ago of the $400 oil change, which used the oil from the dealership, which was $25 a liter. We found cheaper oil since then. I've picked up some other oil. It's closer to $50 for 5 liters, which you need 7.5 to do an oil change. So your costs are still fairly high. And then you need that oil filter, which is only available as of right now from the dealer, which costs me about $82, I believe it was. So oil changes are still fairly expensive, but I think that's a little bit more reasonable than paying $25 per liter times 7.5, which don't buy your oil from the dealer if you buy an Ecodiesel, so you can cut down some of those costs and look around for some of the other Euro spec 5W40 certified oils, because there are some other ones out there that have the proper certification that you can use in this Ecodiesel engine. But as far as engine noise goes, this is what it sounds like from outside. You definitely know that it is a diesel engine. It's still a little bit cold, it's still warming up. And this is what you hear if you've got your window open. So you do hear it a little bit. You can hear the turbo whistling a little bit. But from the back, close the tailgate. Not much noise coming out the exhaust because of all of the emission system that it needs to go through to get out the back. So a couple things to note if you do get an Ecodiesel. That's what the engine sounds like with the engine bay open. A couple things to note with this, I'll just step back so it's not super loud, is the airbox is on the driver's side. So if you're thinking about adding a snorkel to your Ecodiesel, that is something you'll have to consider. I haven't seen any aftermarket solutions available yet that go up the driver's side. All of them are on the passenger side. Something else to note is where the battery is. The battery is further back in the engine bay, and my positive terminal for my winch, or my positive cable for my winch, just barely reaches the positive terminal, and your battery isn't mid-engine bay like it is on gas models. So that's something to consider when routing power cables, is it's a little bit different, as well as if you're adding any aftermarket power control systems. Definitely consider the layout of the engine bay is different and has way less room than a gas model. So some of the stuff mounts right here, which you may not be able to do because of just the way the engine configuration is. So if you are adding any mods, especially ones that are engine base specific or pretty much anything in the front end, do note that it is a lot different and make sure you check for compatibility. So how has the Ecodiesel been as far as fuel economy? I've been averaging about 9 liters per 100 kilometers on the highways, on the road trips that we've been going on, and then around in the city about 10 to 12 liters per 100 kilometers. I do find the Ecodiesel a fun engine to drive in the Wrangler, so I do use the accelerator a little bit, probably more than I should, so that's taking away from some of my fuel economy, which I still think is pretty good with 37-inch tires. And generally on a full tank of fuel, I will get anywhere between 500 and 600 kilometers of range. I do find that I get more range off-road, not total range, but compared to a gas model Wrangler or Gladiator, I burn less fuel per kilometer that we're out. And then generally diesel is about 20% less at the pump. So I'm usually spending quite a bit less than everybody else that is with me that doesn't have a diesel engine when we leave the trail and hit a gas station and fuel up our vehicles. So what are my final thoughts on the Ecodiesel engine? Well, I think it's a good engine. I think the complete redesign has increased the reliability. The power is great. It's super torquey and really doesn't notice any of the additional weight that we've added to it, from the rotational mass of the tires to the increased weight of cargo and things like steel bumpers and tire carriers. The problem with the Wrangler is it has a really low GVW, so if you want to stay within that, it is going to be a bit of a challenge with the increased weight from the Ecodiesel engine. I think the Ecodiesel's best place is in the Gladiator. I think the Gladiator really would benefit from having this Ecodiesel and is now available with the Ecodiesel. And that's the platform you're gonna load up with all of your overland gear, your camping gear, your racks, your rooftop tents. And the Ecodiesel is gonna do awesome with all of that. And you're gonna stay within your GVW. For me, I don't regret ordering the Wrangler with the Ecodiesel at all. It's a really good engine, it's a lot of fun to drive, and it's very capable of handling all of my needs. I don't feel that I need to trade my Ecodiesel in for the 392 Rubicon. I don't think there's enough there that I feel is worth it in starting a build over again. But I think if they came out with a Hellcat version with bigger axles, I would definitely be looking to trade it in. I think if you were wanting to get in with the Ecodiesel platform, I would really consider looking at the Gladiator instead. And I think the 4xe is actually going to be a pretty cool platform for the Wrangler too. So I'm really excited to take one of those out for a drive, and I want to test drive the 392. But I'm pretty happy with my purchase, no regrets whatsoever. But if I was doing it again, I think I would order a Gladiator with the Ecodiesel. So make sure you are subscribed for next week's video. We're going to talk about the mods and how they've worked out for me over the 8 months and all of the adventures that we've gone on. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, share it with your friends, and we'll see you next week in the next upload.